Alright, so I'm gonna get right into this one real quick. I'm not gonna go off anything I wrote. I'm not gonna go off anything I had logged down. I'm gonna get straight into this. My name is Magheed. I do anime, I do manga, I do games. And I do this basically for fun because this is part of my fun as well. If I'm into something, I'm into it. I could make money off of it, but I'm doing too much shit in reality um, to invest in making things quality. So distribution is the only thing I can do with regards to the thing I like. So that said, I'm getting into this one. The first of three animes is Zetsu. Second, Dragon Ball Daima. Third is Tasokare Hotel. There were 25 to 30 animes that came out in January and February combined together, and out of all 25 that I did watch, only three of them cut it. Technically, there were five, but there was after I got past episode five or six of some of them, they basically dropped down by the time episode seven hit. So I was like, okay, a good definition of what a good anime is if you watch the first anime and you said, well, this is not a good anime. You really don't know anything about anime because you cannot really define something based on its first anime, unless you're a genius like that. But typically, people who aren't genius will have to go towards the second episode to see if the second episode is better than the first episode. If the second episode is not better than the first episode, then you can make a proper assessment. You never make a proper assessment from the very first episode. The whole thing of the anime being its own thing is to present itself as its own character, and you could do that in the first episode. And then you proceed forward to the second episode if it's not presented in the first episode. So many animes do that as well. Modern animes sometimes actually release their actually die-hard stuff with regards to the meat of what that project is within the second episode. And the first episode is simply the introduction to lead you into the anime instead of giving you a ton of rich stuff all the way at the beginning, overbearing you with a lot of stuff. So that's a good way to do that. And that's present within these three animes. Some throw you straight to the wolves at the beginning, but others, I guess when they throw you straight to the wolves, they kind of pull you back from the wolves all at the same time in the first episode. So to get directly into this is not the very first episode. I'm just went on to that one because once I press log in and I logged in, that's the image that popped up. So this is the first image that's present here. And the character you see here is the main protagonist of this story. And this story is called Zenshu. And Zenshu is an anime about a girl who writes a story called The Tale of the Perishing and end up in that story called The Tale of the Perishing. Basically an animator, a cartoonist, using classical cartoon style and then render into animation with whatever 3D animation software they're using, and then she gets sucked into that world after she died from eating food. And the food that she died from eating, that because she's so busy at work, she didn't pay attention to the expiration date on it, and she died from clams, simply died choking on it. She was so into what she came up with that she ate the food without seeing that the food was expired within the fridge. Someone gave it to her, she died. Now, here's the thing. I kind of think someone wanted to kill her off because the anime never showed that she actually went to get the food. The anime only showed that she got the food. So, unless it's an accident made by the people who own the office and they just randomly gave it to someone and she just happens to be that someone, then randomly that death of that person could have been anyone and she would still be sitting at her desk as the main animator in conjunction towards her various different animes she's in charge of. So she's basically the head of animation within her department. So if she didn't eat that clam, someone else would die, and then they would probably not end up into this perishing world, tale of perishing, because it seems to be associated mainly with her. Or maybe they would. Maybe the location within where this building is has something to do with who they are. Maybe there's some witchcraft or voodoo stuff that's going on, because it doesn't make sense to me that she happens to be the one that eats the clam and then she goes into the tail. So it seems more like the fact that this is a near death situation that's just happening to her, and we're seeing this situation of the anime from her point of view and what she believes in a near-death situation. For all I know, she could be in coma right now, and she's living her best life within this fantasy world. Or this world could probably this world probably does exist, and it's the plane between reality and fiction. I believe it's simply a matter of her traveling from life to death and being pronounced dead, but she's not completely dead. Otherwise, if she was completely dead, her whole world, that fantasy world that she's in, would have faded away as well as her. She would have died in that fantasy world, and it'll all come crumbling down because she died in reality. So I don't think that's what's going on. I think she somewhat died from overworking, due to lack of eating, due to lack of nutrition, due to lack of sleep, due to many other factors. And being the fact that she's the person that's in charge, it's it's a time constraint type of thing. So she doesn't want to anything to be done wrong because she's a perfectionist. So she does mostly everything by herself. In fact, one of the people who work with her were trying to get it done for her, but she decided to say no. They're going to screw it up. This is how it needs to be. So she decided to take it from them in order to do it because she cannot depend on anyone. And in this next scene, you see a couple of people within her office who aren't really important whatsoever, try to say that, okay, so you may be the main animator in charge, but you're not the person in charge of the company. You're just the main animator in charge above everybody else, but you're not the person in charge of us. You're not like our boss. We're all in collaboration to make this anime. You're just the head animator. And she was like, what did you say? So people are kind of scared of her because she comes across as that girl that you don't mess with. So eventually she falls to the ground, she dies, and then she ends up in this world where a giant creature called Void attacks her. It's like a lobster type centipede type thing, and eventually she's in the anime of her that she created called The Tale of the Perishing. She's rescued by one of her characters called Luke Braveheart. If I'm not, I think I might be saying that correctly. His name, the character she created in her anime called Tale of the Perishing. I believe it was a manga before it became an anime, and there was a movie adaptation. So she's living the good life, but she's working her ass off to get recognition as both the greatest animator for one of the most popular franchise in the history of Japan. Unfortunately, that greatest anime in the history of Japan is not The Tale of the Perishing. The Tale of the Perishing was a flop. It didn't succeed at all, but she loved it for some reason. What she succeeded at was a totally different anime, which she has to always basically push out in order to get the next series or the next adaptation or the next version of that, or continuing. It's like Naruto then Boruto and something like that. So but the thing that she loved was The Tale of the Perishing, and she always was attached to it since she was young. So when she ends up in this world, the main protagonist of the void that attacked the main protagonist, her her name is Natsuko Hirose, I believe. I'll just call her Natsuko because that's how everyone calls her. Or she calls herself Hirose Natsuko. I'm the creator of The Tale of the Perishing. I did this anime. I'm known as the top this. She was explaining all of this to Luke Braveheart. Luke Braveheart doesn't understand anything she's saying because Luke Braveheart is a fictional character in the world that she created. She also created a small little unicorn that looked like My Little Pony, like miniature version. She created an elf. She created a big muscular looking guy, like something straight out of Final Fantasy 7 remake. That guy that was part of the Golden Saucer. And then there was this old lady, looked like old lady Baba from Dragon Ball Z or something. And of course, these are the people who lives in this community. She created the story. She created all these characters. Moving on from that, we get to the next scene where we see he basically says, I don't know who you are, where you come from, and why you're here, or how you end up in that desert where I rescued you from. But this creature, he calls her a creature because she always wears her hair in front of her face, so he thinks she's a hair creature, which is part of Japanese mythology. There's certain things called hair creatures as well. I forgot their names. What is it called? It has a name. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne had a character that was all hair and everything. I don't remember, but the point is, they had this big him and Luke Braveheart. She and Luke Braveheart had this big argument. The little My Little Pony character would sound like a weird little puppet dude. Also was in the argument, and she basically says that the Void are going to attack this town, so everyone got to get the hell out. Eventually, she turned out to be right, and eventually, the town almost gets destroyed, but it didn't. Before it got destroyed, or was going to get destroyed, I use almost as in they didn't reach. The Void did not reach the town because Natsuko um, rescued the town, rescued Luke Braveheart, rescued uh, what's the name? Actually, now I think about it, the name of the girl, the elf girl, and the unicorn, Memmerru. I think her name was Memmerru or Memel. I think in the English terminology she would be called Memel, but in the Japanese description for her, she's Memmerru, and the little unicorn one was called Unio. So Unio goes to save everyone because she didn't want Luke Braveheart to die because Unio, I believe Unio is a she or Unio could be a he. I believe Unio is a she. She didn't want Luke Braveheart to die because they're companions. They're part of the team called the Knights of the Nine, or the Justice Knights of the Nine. So she was about to sacrifice herself in order to save the town, where like 1,000 of these void creatures were charging directly towards the town. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and this is the part of the anime where I say, when I was starting to say, okay, so this anime is going quite slow at the beginning, the first 20 minutes. And at the 25-minute marker, it starts to do something interesting. Um, it started to hook me slowly, not because of the anime that she went into. She summoned this mystical peg bar. And if you don't know what a peg bar is a tool that animators use in order to draw cartoons. Not the same as drawing characters on a piece of paper when you're doing illustration. Cartooning. If you ever had those flip books where you're flipping through a books and you see little cartoon characters moving their arms and legs while you're flipping the book. Well, a flip book is something like a peg bar is at the end of a flip book, but it's not a book. You see, it's a bunch of pages. You use the peg bar to be kind of the holder for all the pages. In other words, what you do is you punch holes, just like you see here, a hole here, a hole here, and a hole here, into the paper, and punch as many holes into the paper, measure it. Punch, let's say you punch 50 holes or 100 holes into the paper. You then put it within this peg bar, because the peg bar is like little things that stick outwards. So you put it install it into the paper, so that when it's in the paper, it keeps the paper from moving around. So when you're drawing a character or drawing any type of thing, you can flip from page to page, and the paper won't move from where it is. So when you draw a character, the character you're drawing in that position, in the next page you draw the character in the same position, in the next page you draw the character in the same position, and so on and so forth. But this time the character is moving their head to the left, and the next page moving the character slightly to the left and further to the left, so the animation will look smooth. And that's what happened in anime. And most of Disney animation back in the past, they use peg bars. So this peg bar is a good representation of classical animation tool that people used back in the days, and it's still used to this very day for those who like to use transition of physical animation or freehand work and then put it into digital. And why I like this anime, I'm starting to like the anime by the time it got to the halfway point, is because of the use of anime here. Here we have drop shadows. Here we have motion blurs. Here we have what is it called? Masking effects, and we have highlights of subtraction or difference. In Photoshop, the difference would be the lightings around here on the hands, or the subtraction would be here around hands. And of course, the masking effect would be seeing the paper here, and then Once it's masked, you could see the paper behind here. Otherwise, if the hand was present here, it would block out anything from back here and back here. The masking is to show what is behind the hand itself. And what they basically did, they basically thin out here by opacitying it, using the animation to opacitate it so that it looks, so you could see it directly through. Basically what they did is they cut it out, or they mask it out, and then what they did thereafter, they did the same thing to this hand, because they're both the same, you see, but turned at a different angle. But basically they're the same. So they just colored the highlights around here differently, and they basically did an animation where the left side here and the right side here come together towards the center. But it's basically the same animation. You just cannot tell because everything is happening all at once. So that's a really, really interesting thing I like about this anime. It does a lot of strange animation stuff. It does a lot of strange design stuff. That does a lot of use of colors, and a lot of bright colors and a lot of dark colors all at the same time. So the person who's doing the animation for this is at their top level, or at least if they're not at the top level, what they're delivering something that's their own personal niche with regards to how they do their stuff. I'll get later on into niche with regards to this anime. There's a reason why this is the #1 anime. Not so much the story, but everything else present in the anime. So moving on from that, we get to the next scene, and this is what hooked me into the anime for the very first 3 episodes. This thing here is basically like something straight out of Nausicaa in the Valley of Nausicaa of the Valley in the Wind, or is it Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind? It's hard to remember how it's said. Okay, you get the idea. It's Nausicaa. So basically, moving on from that, this is like the giant beast that was described in Nausicaa. It's basically a nuke beast, a thing that was used to destroy the world before the world became the Nausicaa world. Basically, it was a weapon of destruction in the past, and there were many of them. So this is what this thing reminded me of something straight out of Nausicaa, an ultimate weapon. So she basically created this ultimate weapon using her peg bar and her pen, and she drew this character. And whatever she draws in this world that she's actually in comes to life. But the problem with the peg bar, it's a magical peg bar, which makes completely no sense whatsoever. And I was about to give up on the anime with regards to this ridiculous idea. But the moment I saw the giant robot that she draws, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This looked like some cool shit that from straight out of Nausicaa. And then it did this blast out of his eyes and evaporated like 1,000 of these void creatures all in one blast. And they made it extremely epic. So it was an extremely epic scene. I was like, okay, so I'm hooked for the first episode. And that was just the first episode. We saw her doing animation. Then we see her dying. Then we see her coming back to life in this world. Then we see her being rescued by Luke. Then we see her meeting like a unicorn, an elf, and a bunch of people in a neighborhood or in a community. And then we see the void attacked. And then we see her summoning her special powers that she didn't know she have. And then we see, after that, we see, we see her creating a giant-sized kaiju type thing. But it looks like a paper-drawn version of a giant-sized kaiju. So moving on from that, we see this other situation where, well, this image look kind of blurry because it's more focused on her than it's on them. That's why they look a little blurry in the background. So we see this next image here where she's talking about where she comes from, but they don't understand and they don't get it. There's also another character in here. I don't remember his name though. He's like a little flying puppet. It's hard for me to remember his name. I don't remember his name. He's a little flying drone. There's another character called Justice, but I don't remember the name of the flying drone that's right next to him. He looked like something straight out of classical mythology with regards to Buddhism or Shintoism, more Shintoism. Okay, so moving on from that, he gets into this argument. Luke gets into an argument with Natsuko. Natsuko basically says, what, you a feminist or a chauvinist? Like, which one are you? So Natsuko basically say, okay, you hear that, Memmerru? You hear that? This guy doesn't believe women should go into, battle, that they shouldn't be on the front lines and stuff. And then I guess Natsuko basically said, well, why the hell is, Memmerru with you if that's the case? She's a woman. And then Luke tried to make up some lame ass reason like, well, Memmerru isn't really a woman. She's a warrior. Some lame ass shit. I started to laugh. Okay, that's some lame crap. So the next episode, episode 2, jumps straight into this. Natsuko basically summoned this time. She summoned some missiles in order to defeat flying voids. So I say episode 2 is probably the weakest episode. So I kind of like watched it and then I skipped past it. But it did have a lot of exposition in there, such as in the anime Natsuko created, the manga, before she got sucked into this world. Luke Braveheart was crying over the death of Memmerru in her manga. So I think Natsuko is afraid that the death of, she's at a point in the story of the tale of the perishing where Memmerru hasn't died yet, and Luke Braveheart doesn't blame himself yet. So she's concerned about that, and she's wondering if that is actually going to happen. But it turns out, which is very strange to her, everything that she remember writing about and animating about that were in the reference pages that she created are somewhat different in this world. That everything that is present that she remembered of the characters, some things, I would say 25 of those things, 25% of those things have changed because she's in the world now. It could be that the fact that she's in this world is the reason why it's happening, or it could be other reasons. So moving on from that, we get to see the animation with regards to Luke Braveheart. Now, I took a picture of this one because I wanted to see how the animation of the characters themselves look. And the animation of the characters look pretty much fair and smooth for what it is in this now generation. So I would say this is like the standard for how they do anime. But this anime character, whoever drew this anime character is very good at animation more than anything else. Not so much as how eyes and ears and mouth looks, but more with regards to fluidity of how the neck moves and how the hair moves and how the face moves and how the arms moves and all that good stuff. So moving on from that, I get to I believe this is the third episode. Um, During the third episode, after the second episode, we get to see Natsuko and Luke going after Memmerru because apparently something happened with Memmerru that she's associated with some strange people. And then by episode 3, or this could be episode 4, I'm not sure anymore. I just put them all together. But I believe by episode 3, we get even more context with regards to Memmerru herself. So the anime slowly but surely is fleshing out characters as well as the story itself of the world per each episode. It's not like it's okay, we're doing this little bit of stuff in this episode. No, we're going to skip episode 2. No, we're going to go to episode 3 and do this more fleshing out. Episode 5, we're going to skip that. No, in every episode they're fleshing out certain things. And it turns out our nice little girl Memmerru is actually the bad guy of the story. So from episode 1 all the way to episode 4, I believe, 3 or 4, it turns out, yeah, episode 4. This definitely is episode 4. It turns out that Memmerru is actually the ringleader of these cultists, and that they want to bring hell on earth. To bring hell on earth. Literally, to destroy everything and kill everyone on this planet by summoning the ultimate demon or something, the ultimate void. In this world, a demon is like a void. So summoning the ultimate void that no one could stop. And so Luke and Natsuko are extremely depressed because Natsuko basically say, well, that wasn't in the reference of the character I drew. Memmerru was never a cultist. Memmerru was never this person that just lost her way. You're like, what the hell is going on in my own anime? So she's depressed for that reason. And Luke is depressed because he didn't realize after the so many adventures he had with Memmerru that Memmerru was always evil to begin with. So he's depressed that he didn't realize that Memmerru was always this type of person. And here's another thing that regards to this anime, why I put this as my number 1 anime. It's not so much the colors, it's not so much the animation, it's not so much the strange bizarrety and the summoning characters and all this other good stuff and exposition and its own niche. It's how it does certain things, how certain things are executed. Here we have the character. You see her face, you see her hair, you see how she expressed certain emotion is present in relations to her hair and her face. In some scenes, her face is completely covered by her hair to give off a type of emotion that she's having at the moment. In other scenes, her hair is put to the side, but half of her face is shown. In other scenes, only a piece of her face is shown. So this is a good expression and a good little niche that the anime has, or at least a character defining trait that the character has. Here, we have two emotions. Two emotions are happening here. This character is just one character, but the way the animation is done is like the character is two characters. We have nice little Natsuko, and then we have serious I'll kick your ass Natsuko. And truly, sometimes when Natsuko switch from one type of behavior to the next, it's truly kind of like okay, I don't want to mess with this type of chick, because you could never know when she flies off the deep end. And the same goes for her maturity. It's like strange. It's like she goes Super Saiyan one day in maturity. One moment she's acting like a doofus, and the next moment she's behaving like a grown ass woman that's responsible for like 10 kids or something. And in this moment is that situation where she's talking to Luke Braveheart and says, oh, okay, so you're a big hotshot mature person. Let me see you do let me see you solve this situation. And her voice, not only does her expression becomes more woman-like, her voice changes as well to become more woman-like, but more of a mature motherly type, but not a mature motherly type, more like a mature drill sergeant like. She's like, so let's see what you can do, hotshot. And her voice amplifies with her behavior, and her image of her face shown here amplifies as well with regards to her voice. So her voice and her how she looks in her face are both in conjunction with each other. It's a very strange thing that the anime does. I kind of like it a lot. Here's another example why this is the number one. In this situation, they could have simply drawn her with her hair in front of her face. They didn't need the purple highlights. They decided to go a little bit goofy, and they went even more goofy so that you could see her eyes. Not because you could actually see her eyes, but you could see how she feels underneath her hair. So this is the niche of the anime. This character has a specific type of package. That's the only word I could use with regards to her. A package set. A set of instrumental traits, or a package set of uh, behavioral components. That's what I'm looking for. Components. She has a niche set of package components. And in that package, each component represents a different type of behavior for a different type of scene. And in this one, you'll get to see what an example of that niche is in this situation, where you could actually feel an anime is showing how she feels underneath the hair, because you literally cannot see her face. The anime didn't have to do this, but he wanted to go a little cutesy in order to give life to the hair itself. More than anything, it's giving life to the hair, as if her hair is a character in and of itself, not just her underneath the hair. So moving on from that, both her and Natsuko and Luke addressed Memmerru and told her about, you don't love the Knights of the Nine anymore. She basically says that how did you find out that I was the bad guy? It's not that I don't like the Knights of the Nine. This world has existed for suffering for so long. I'm an elf. I live for thousands of years. For thousands of years, I've seen people die. Human beings, other elves, orcs, so on and so forth. All living creatures die, except us elves. And when us elves die, we only die by the few, because most of the time we have great healing factor, like we straight up Wolverine, and we don't die. So we have to watch the rest of the world die in front of us. So we just want it all to end, including ourselves. So Natsuko says, well, this is some bullshit. So eventually, she and Luke try to figure out a way to save Natsuko. Because Luke wants to save Natsuko. Because Memmerru is basically saying she's lived for thousands of years. She suffered all this. Luke wants to save her. Where Natsuko basically say we have to take her out. Luke say we're not taking anything out. So they both start sneaking around with each other. And our friend little Unios here start thinking like, why are they sneaking around each other? They're behaving very suspiciously. So Uni is starting to have this feeling that, Luke has a hots for Natsuko and stuff, and it's like a weird little thing. And he's not wrong, or should I say she's not wrong. Luke's eventually start to warm up to Natsuko, the fact that he's starting to like her. So during their little rescue with regards to trying to save Memmerru, Luke goes in to try to pretend to be a priest or one of the cultist followers, which he fails spectacularly at. Like the lamest infiltration ever. It's like Conan trying to infiltrate Tulsadum layer and standing out because he's such a big dude. Um, so he gets discovered automatically. But before that, realizing that Luke was probably going to get killed off because he was discovered. What basically Natsuko did, she's basically summoned, um, or should I say, Memmerru summoned the ultimate void demon during this, and she transformed her body into the ultimate void demon. So the whole summoning thing wasn't just to summon an ultimate void demon. It was to gather enough magic in order to transform her or fuse her into this ultimate void demon. So it was never about summoning, is more like using her as a conduit or a host for transforming her into the ultimate demon. So in order to save society from falling to complete and utter destruction, because the ultimate void demon cannot be destroyed, this is where the anime, I would say, solidifies as the number one anime to me. This is some very weird ass shit. Um, I don't know if I wanted to laugh at this anime or clap for this anime. Either way, I was enjoying it and I was laughing. It's like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But I'm having fun. I'm having fun. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm having fun. So a damn musical come out of nowhere. A musical of all things. Like, this anime had shown at no point since the beginning, first episode all the way to fourth episode, that it wasn't a musical. And then Natsuko, using her powers of the peg bar, decide to, okay, how can I solve the world coming to an end? And her solution to the world coming to an end, and the world basically mass genocide of the entire world, is to use one of her characters called Ultimate um, Exilter, I believe, EXIS, Exter. I believe his name is Ultimate Exter. And Exter is basically the one of the characters of a musical boy band that she created a long time ago from a manga. And he was great at singing, and he had a huge pitch voice, and it was very, very fairy tale-y, and it was meant for, characters, people who love boys and girl bands, uh, and they were really into that stuff. And so she used that character that she created in order to make everything lovey-dovey, basically turn hate into love. So whereas the ultimate void is the ultimate representation of hate, she basically summoned a character which is the opposite of this to get rid of hate. Now, I don't know, and this is why this is also my number one anime. Now, I don't know if this was an intentional thing done to express how society is now with the wars and everything happening around the world, but it feels like it's an intentional pointing finger at the nature of man and how we quickly jump towards hate and how we need a little bit more lightheartedness in order to do so. So this damn anime went all straight up High School Musical on me all of a sudden. I'm like, what the hell? Dude starts singing, but they didn't stop at singing and flowers, and then everything is all flowery. It's a straight up dance session in this piece. I was like, yo, and they even on top of that was about to do the whole Disney going over the castle thing. So this is a representation of the Disney fairy tale of yesteryear. And I was like, oh, of course they can't do that because, that's copyright stuff. So they didn't do it. They just went into the moon, but they didn't go over the castle. So, but it was hinted at them doing that. So, like, oh, straight up, this is straight up Disney. This is a straight up Disney anime. This is a straight up Disney anime. But it's not a Disney anime. It's like if Disney was to make a straight up Japanese anime, like call everyone from Japan. I mean, yeah, call a group of people from Japan, great animators, and say, hey guys, sit in this room, and we'll pay you whatever you want. This is Disney. We'll pay you whatever you want. We know you guys make great Japanese anime in Japan. Well, over here, you will have whatever office you can. Sit in this room and create this anime for us. But don't tell anyone that you made it for Disney. Just release it as an anime, and at the end of the 4th episode, we'll have one of the characters in the anime go over the castle to solidify that this is a Disney anime. Now, this is not a Disney anime, but it's hinted at the nature of the fairy tale world that Disney has influenced with regards to Japan, which is strange to me. I mean, actually, it's not strange. It's kind of obvious since Japanese anime came into being because of Disney. So it's a nice little, it's a nice little homage to Disney, and it feels after episode 4, or should I say at the end of episode 4, you get to see more of Natsuko's face. And this is the first time in the anime that you actually see her face fully. Her hair is pulled backwards. She wrapped her top of her hair in this little roll because she wants to draw the character of Exeter, Ultimate Exeter, for Memmerru. So Memmerru could always remember the character. And Memmerru is in love with this fictional character that's on this piece of paper. But Natsuko feel great about it. And I feel great about it. Because Memmerru was about to end the damn world. And a fictional character from a drawn piece of paper all of a sudden stop everything. It was weird as shit. It's a weird anime. But we then go into episode 5 where we get a little bit backstory with regards to the different anime she did. And how she used to work in the office. And how she used to harass, well, she didn't really harass, but she asked new people, new interns and other people about their relationship status with regards to their boyfriends or girlfriends in order to get ideas of how to create certain characters in her anime. And then eventually we get back to reality where she's in the world. And it's back to Natsuko with her hair in front of her face. And I'm not sure exactly what episode 5 was that much about, but we get to see a bunch of little kids who are within a starving area, so we get to learn about the world around, once again, pulling a lot of political stuff that's going on in reality in this anime. So a lot of political stuff in reality is present in this anime, but done in a way to simplify it so that it doesn't affect the anime in certain ways. You get to see things. So in some ways, I believe this animator or the anime studio is trying to solve some world problems in the way that they could only do so in animation by addressing certain things. Say, if I address this and say, maybe you could do it this way, maybe someone outside, let's say a funding company, could use that idea in order to create something. I believe that's one way animators can bring awareness to certain real issues. So we then go to Luke Braveheart slowly but surely in episode 5 and episode 6. We get more fleshing out of Luke Braveheart. Luke is starting to rub off on me more than anything because he's such a weirdo, man. He's a male chauvinist, but at the same time, he's this awkward character who doesn't come across as a leader. His behavior is he likes Natsuko, but he doesn't know how to deal with handling liking women and stuff. And then eventually Natsuko meets a character called Justice, who's like a dragon who used to be part of the Knights of the Nine. Eventually turns out to be a drunkard because of some event that happened with Luke a long time ago. Luke, being the jealous type of guy he is, or the weirdo he is, sees her with Justice, and he automatically starts thinking that, um, you know, Justice and Natsuko might be into each other. So he start having some weird fantasies in his head that's stressing him out. So Luke is starting to grow on me. He's a real weirdo. He reminds me of Full Metal Alchemist Edward in certain ways. Like when it becomes ridiculous part of the anime, his face change in Edward. The same thing is present with Edward from Full Metal Alchemist when he starts to behave weird. This reminds me of Edward. So moving on from that, we get to see more scenes with regards to Natsuko and how someone else, I believe this is episode 6 or episode 7, I believe it might be episode 7, where she summoned a samurai type character to take care of the void that were attacking. This time the void were like little liquid type thing invading the world, and she created this samurai in order to save everyone and to kill the void and to cut through all the void. But eventually the samurai gets KO'd and it goes down. And at the end, the void, this liquid black ooze, which wasn't a black ooze before, which is strange. The void were always red in color, but this one is black in color. So the black ooze version of the void goes directly towards Natsuko, and it's assumed that it swallowed her whole and that she died in the world of Tales of the Perishing. I don't know if that means that the void is a representation of her mind collapsing, that it's reality is eating her whole, or she's about to die, or maybe Luke saves her again, but that was the end. Basically, this is the stopping point for where I stopped with regards to that. And it was very good anime. So, episode 1 was good, episode 2 wasn't good at all, episode 3 was good, episode 4 was very good. I didn't see the whole Exeter singing scene coming from nowhere. I like the different type of summon characters she used. Not so much the samurai, but I like the whole using the different missiles. I like the giant kaiju type thing. I like Exeter himself, who is also a summon character. So by the time I got to like episode 5, I think I saw enough, everything I need to see. So moving on from that, that was Zenshu. I believe that was pretty damn awesome. Um, and that's basically it. That's that one. So the next one is Dragon Ball Daima, and I'm gonna get straight into that. And this one is the second of the anime. So I'm gonna go a little bit faster with this because I know a little bit more about this one than Tasokare Hotel and of course Zetsu. So Dragon Ball Daima is basically the story of Goku being turned into a little boy, just like he did in Dragon Ball GT. But it's not just him this time; it's everyone's changed into children by a guy called Daimon or Goman. I believe his name was Goman. Yeah, Goman. That was his name. And the main characters of Dragon Ball Daima, or characters in Dragon Ball Daima, are those who are present in the Dragon Ball Z universe and Dragon Ball Super universe. So the typical characters you know and love have returned. Goku has returned. Gohan has returned. Goten, Shin, Piccolo, so on and so forth. But the main characters that are going to be highlighted in the story with regards to Dragon Ball Daima is going to be Goku. It's going to be a character called Shin from Dragon Ball Z, and it's going to be a new character called Glorio, another new character called Pansy. So those are going to be the 4 characters present in Dragon Ball Daima. And why is this on the list? Well, the best description for the reason why this is on the list is because Dragon Ball GT failed. That's the reason why. And they kind of wanted to not replicate what Dragon Ball GT was, but they wanted to give a kind of feeling of the nature of how Goku was back in the days in the original Dragon Ball, and not the direction that GT was going to go. So whatever happened in GT, just to summarize that in like 10 seconds, Goku got turned into a kid. He got on a ship with Pan and a guy named Trunks. Trunks, from we know from Dragon Ball Z. And then they went across the universe with another character called Gero, 4 characters, and there are 4 characters in here as well. So, yeah. Just so if anyone says, well, no, that doesn't mean anything. Yep, it means something. There were 4 characters in GT who were the main people going throughout the entire story. And there are also 4 characters here. And Goku's once again a kid. And, yeah. And once again, they have someone else who's also mature with them, a guy called Glorio, new character. And surprisingly enough, the female in the group, which is a princess called Pansy, has the same name as Pan from GT. So it's like the anime is actually making fun of GT or trying to undo what GT did. Because GT started off good, but then by the time you got to the middle, you didn't care anymore. By the time he got to the end, it started to get real good again with what was his name, Baby. But by the time you get towards babies are coming to a conclusion, you don't care anymore. The only thing that kept it alive was Super Saiyan 4. So moving on from that into this anime, this is not that. This is a better version of what that should have been. That's the way I see it. We have a character called Gomon here, and we have another character called Zenshu here. Or is it Zetsu or is it Degasu? I believe that's his name. Degasu, not Zenshu. I'm thinking about Zetsu from Naruto. His name is Degasu, and I believe his name is Gomon. This character here, he's Gomon, and this character is Degasu. And Degasu is the brother of Shin from Dragon Ball Z. And of course, what they're looking at right now is the events that happened with Majin Buu. So after what happened with Majin Buu, they're looking at everything that happened with Majin Buu, which is strange to me. I mean, literally, the events of Majin Buu happened like a long time ago. And then Mr. Satan lost all his hair, and then people grew up and have kids. Gohan had kids and everything. You know, people matured and got to a certain age, and these characters are just investigating what happened with Majin Buu now. It's very strange. It's very strange to me. And I believe the reason why they decide to go down this route is because Mr. I believe his name is, what was his name? Dabler. His name is Dabler, the king of the demon world. Dabura, I guess that's the Japanese description, Dabura, did not check in. Apparently, he left with Babidi in Dragon Ball Z to seek out Majin Buu, the ultimate creature, and he did not check back into the demon world. He was the king of the demon world. He went on a little adventure with Babidi, and he never came back to his kingdom. So eventually, people didn't defy him. They followed his orders after he left, and they did not bother him. That's the reason why this anime is happening now. Because they, for some strange reason, all of a sudden, they haven't heard back from him a long time, and so they are now investigating. Which doesn't really make sense. They should have investigated him the moment he got eaten by Majin Buu. So we get to see the scene here, how he got turned into chocolate by Majin Buu and eaten by Majin Buu. And this is basically the continuation of the story of Dragon Ball Z. This is not the continuation of the story of Dragon Ball Super. Even though this is the story that's happening after Dragon Ball Super, so people like, present in Dragon Ball Super still exist. The various different universes, Universe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they all exist. All of them exist. Ultra Instinct still exists. but they're going a little bit backwards to the story that happened after Dragon Ball Z, the end of Dragon Ball Z. So even though this is continuing after Dragon Ball Super, this is the continuing story of what happened after Dragon Ball Z. So Goman looked at what happened with Dabura, and then he saw the person who basically defeated Majin Buu. And this was a famous scene where the Goku looked into the screen, and moving on from that, so I don't have to stay on this one for too long. This is a famous image scene of Goku pointing his finger, thumbs up to Vegeta after defeating Majin Buu, telling the Majin Buu you could come back as a good guy later on. Eventually, we get to see another character other than Degusu and Goman, and her name is Dr. Eris, and Dr. Eris is obviously a mad scientist. There always have to be a mad scientist in the Dragon Ball universe. I don't know why she's here. I believe she's the weakest character of the series. We don't need another mad doctor, for crying out loud. But apparently, they think so. All they needed to do was to keep Goman and Degusu, but they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They went with another doctor, so they didn't need to. So eventually, as the story moved on, they found this great old guy that's a Namekian who lived in the demon world, and he's the guy that created the Earth Dragon Balls. Basically, he created Shenron. So Earth Dragon Balls was created by this very, very, very old and ancient guy. And we get to meet another character in this anime, other than the very old Namekian. I believe this giant-sized thing is called Mr. What was it called again? Was it Mr. Fluffy or Mr. It's not Mr. Fish or something. It's Mr. Damn it, I forgot the name. Warp. I believe his name was Warp. He's called Mr. Warp. And Mr. Warp is basically the most interesting thing in this anime. And it's the reason why this is the number 2. So here's the reason why this is the number 2. Straight up. So I could just skip other stuff. These are all these little pockets like buttons on a t-shirt or something, or on a buttons on a wall of stuff, are all universes or dimensions. And they're all inside this character. So basically, one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here, one's here. Inside this huge circle body, at every different dimensions of this huge circle body, are different things, different pockets, different realities. So the Dragon Ball world is basically the people who created the Dragon Ball franchise. They're basically saying we're going to expand the universe of the Dragon Ball universe to another level. If you thought you knew what the Dragon Ball universe was, you have no idea. And that's the main reason why this is the number 2. The universe of Dragon Ball has expanded to a great number. Universe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Universe 13, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whatsoever at all. There are tons more dimensions that exist that you could have possibly never realized. And there's so many things that they're basically giving to you, both exposition and with regards to character development, slowly but surely. If not character development, story itself, development of story. Like the ship, for example, they're introducing you the demon type ship, the different type of creatures that could teleport you to different worlds. Mr. Warp is one of those teleporters. He's like a giant-sized teleporter for the entire damn different realities. So you go inside his body, you get teleported to this location. Inside, there's a teleport warp that warps you from one reality to the next reality. And in this reality where I believe Goman and Degusu goes to is the reality of the Dragon Ball world, Dragon Ball universe. So they go there, we're trying to wreck their little party here, but they didn't go actually to the party. They went to see where Dende is and the rest of everyone, Mr. Popo, are, to find out about where the Dragon Balls are. So they went up to the high tower, and the old man basically summoned the Dragon Balls because he created them from the ground. So he always knew where they were. Most people have to search for them. He knew where they were automatically, and he created the Dragon Ball just like that. Just like that. Because how the Dragon Ball come into being and how they're developed over, I believe, many years. they stay into the ground, and eventually they form into a Dragon Ball in the ground. But after you make a wish, they go back to be gray colored, and they have to kind of ferment for years and years, maybe even decades before they become Dragon Ball again. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's not something as simple as, a year's worth of crops and then all of a sudden next year you can have another year's worth of crops. It doesn't work that way. It takes a whole lot longer for Dragon Ball to turn into Dragon Ball, but he does it with a fly. So moving on from that, Shenron is summoned. He makes his wish to make sure Goku and everyone turns into little kids. That's how they turn into little kids, because he's threatened by the guy who defeated Majin Buu. If a guy like this could defeat Majin Buu, and Majin Buu defeated Dabura, then he knows a guy who could defeat Majin Buu could also defeat Dabura, who is the king of the demon world, of all three demon worlds. And that's another thing too. This more fleshing out happens. Apparently, the demon world is split into three different dimensions, three different worlds. Even though it's considered the demon world, there are layers to the demon world. Unlike different universes, the demon world seems to be like one universe, but different dimensions of it. So there's the red dimensions, there's the yellow dimension, and there's the orange dimension or something, or the purple dimension, or the blue dimension. I believe this is red, yellow, blue. It's like a color thing. So they went with the obvious primary colors. So Goku then tried to do his little flying and stuff. He cannot fly properly because he's a little kid. So he has to train himself how to learn how to fly again. So he goes back to, and Piccolo is saying, okay, we got to figure out what the hell's going on here, but we don't know what's going on here. So Goku goes back to Master Roshi's place and see Roshi has been turned into a kid as well. And for what Goman did, he's basically turned not just Goku, but all of Goku's allies and friends to kids. So I'm assuming that more people of Dragon Ball universe have been turned into kids as well. Some that we haven't seen yet. So someone like Marin or something is probably a kid as well. So moving on from that, let me go back to the one with Piccolo. We get even more exposition. After episode 1 is done, we get even more exposition in episode 2. And in episode 2, we get to learn that everyone who has pointy ears in the Dragon Ball world, and I didn't notice. I've never knew this. I never knew this from the very jump, and I believe that this might be something that's new in the Dragon Ball universe. Everyone who has pointy ears is from the demon world. I thought to myself, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, so you're telling me all this time, every character from Mr. Popo to Piccolo to every character, freaking Bojack and all of them, from the movies and stuff, if a character has pointy ears, if any character has pointy ears, they're from the demon world. And here's where I started to say, okay, that's kind of silly. But then the anime basically says, this is the reason why. And apparently, there have been 4 or 5 different species that used to live in the demon realm or world many eons ago. 4 or 5 different species. One is that of Shin's species, the Kais. 2 is that of Piccolo. 1, I believe, is that of Mr. Popo, and so on and so forth. The other is like of Bojack and stuff and his people. And they might have also been different ones as well. And of course, there are always whatever existence of these 4 different type of races that 4 or 5 different type of races that exist in that the demon world way back in the past. There were always variants of them, like different cultures. Like you have the human race, but the human race is split into the Armenians and Greeks and Russians and Americans. People who have different skin color, people who have different ethnic background, people who have different upbringing and different cultures. Some of them who have smaller heads, bigger heads, smaller ears, bigger ears, different skin color, lighter skin color, darker skin color, redder skin color. And that's what's going on here. everyone in the demon world who's had pointy, the one thing that makes them all the same is that they have pointy ears. That's how you know that they came from the demon world. And you could say the same thing for all human beings. The one thing that would make human beings human is that we could walk upright and we have all round ears. So that's their little takeaway with regards to this. Of course, there's also eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. But in the anime of Dragon Ball Daima, they're basically saying if a character has pointy ears, then that means that character originally heritage came from the demon world. So it's like, okay, that's fascinating. Then that means when everyone left the demon world, everyone who had pointy ears left the demon world and went off to live in the universe or in space or wherever they decided to live, or travel to a different universe, or wherever they decided to migrate and develop a different heritage or a different culture or a different way of life, other than trying to conquer and do conquest as all demons are. Because apparently everyone who's lived in the demon world before were all conquest type. The primordial demons of the demon world were of many different cultures, but they all had one specific thing. They were all evil, and they all did evil things. And eventually the ones that left to explore different facets of life. Some wanted to be agriculture, some wanted to be explorers, some wanted more out of life than just conquest. And that's how Piccolo came to Earth. He was actually a demon. Evil King Piccolo was practicing the behavior of his demon kin from a long time ago. I didn't know this. I just thought he was a Namekian who came from Namek and stuff. But apparently all Namekians are actually demons. Didn't know this. Or variants of demons. Didn't know this either. If you have pointy ears, apparently you either came from the demon world or a variant dimension of the demon world. Did not know this. That's fascinating. So moving on from that, I took a long time explaining that. Goku decided to get his stick back that was present on this pole that Roshi had to hang out his laundry. I believe it's called his power pole. And then I believe Bulma decided to tell Kibito, listen, I need you to fetch stuff for me. And Kibito has been designated, even though he's kid version Kibito, still has his powers. But he's now been designated to be Bulma's butler, which to his dislike and um, humiliation, uh, he doesn't want to deny Bulma, but at the same time, he has to have like an understanding of respect for himself, that there's a line for which he won't do, like work for Bulma. So they've made him into this like butler type character, or go fetch this, because he could teleport from location to location easy. So moving on from that, we get to the next scene where we get to see the first appearance of a new character within the anime, Glorio. And Glorio is a blue skin character, like Bojack and his crew. I'm still surprised. It's still fascinating to me that everyone who has pointy ears came from the demon world. That they're all demons. Like it's fascinating to me. Like, okay, here I'm thinking Bojack is a freaking alien from another planet. Turns out that everyone apparently was originally from the demon world. Who knew this? Okay, so moving on from that, Glorio has basically introduced himself to Goku, saying that how he has to stop Goman from destroying Earth and conquering the demon world, because he's a little shit and stuff. And if it has his way, he'll do his own thing. So Goku decides he's going to go with him to help Glorio stop Goman. Shin decides he's going to join as well, because he wants to know what Glorio is up to, because he knows Glorio is from the demon world, and no one who comes from the demon world ever basically say anything with regards to helping someone without something to gain from it. And whatever they're trying to gain is typically not something good. So as of yet, I do not know if Glorio is actually a good guy or not. And fun fact, or I shouldn't say fun fact. There is no fun fact. But what I want to say is that Goku is basically he's always been Goku. He's just who he is, a happy guy, and he's so happy at loving martial arts and fighting. sometimes he forget his manners, and he doesn't know how to say Glorio's name correctly because it's complicated to him to say Glorio. I mean, it's not hard at all, and to the point that eventually Glorio starts to get angry at him and saying, "You're doing this intentionally, saying my name incorrect." And Goku does this for a couple of episodes. Episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I believe all the way up to episode 5. And then eventually by episode 5, Gloria will basically say, "You're doing that intentionally. How you keep getting my name wrong?" Goku's just Goku. So moving on from that, Shin is curious about Glorio and his intentions. Shin is poking his brain, asking him about where he comes from, who sent him here, blah blah blah. Eventually, they stop off at this place where they had this little bar fight, and the people who they had the bar fight with eventually stole their ship. So now, by the time episode 3 comes around, they have to look for another ship. So eventually, they go to this place to look for a way to get a ship, and they didn't get a ship, but they managed to find a lot of bugs. And these are various different type of bugs that give you power to get more energy, kind of like Sensu beans, and bugs that can allow you to fuse with other people, kind of like the fusion earrings of the pulsar earrings. But the demon world has the kind of like the same stuff Earth does, but it's in its own way. It's in bug format. So they managed to hijack. I wouldn't say hijack, but they were given a cannon to rocket himself over the vast lands of the sky of the demon world. And you're thinking to yourself, well, why don't they just fly? Well, apparently in the demon world, more exposition. You can't fly for a long time until you completely collapse from exhaustion because the air in the demon world is so heavy. You have to stay on the ground. The moment you get in the air, you completely are exhausted and you fall to the ground from flying. So even for someone like Goku, it's heavy. Now, if Goku was to go Super Saiyan, I doubt it would be heavy whatsoever at all because the Super Saiyan's power is like 100 times that of a Saiyan. So yeah, it wouldn't affect him if he had gone Super Saiyan. But I believe he's intentionally not trying to go Super Saiyan. And now in this episode, I believe this is episode 3, um, we get to meet Pansy, and Pansy is disguising herself, and she's taking on some of Goman's military troops, and these are Goman's military troops. And so Goku helped her out because in the demon world, no one really have like superpowers like Goku and stuff, or like Trunks or like Piccolo and stuff like that. In the demon world, people are just like average people, but they're demons. Um, Moving on from that, we get to see Goku take them out, and Pansy's rescued, and then Pansy said her name is Pansy, blah 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 blah. I'm going to this castle and stuff to meet this guy. You could come with me so we could find out a way to take down Goldman. She says, sure, I'm more than happy to. Goku says, sure, I'm more than happy to go with you to this place because we're trying to rescue our friend Dende, who was kidnapped by Goldman, so on and so forth. So moving on to the next, we get to see another character who are present here, and this turns out to be Pansy's father, and Pansy's introduced as a princess, I believe, by episode 4, and meets Pansy's father in episode 4. He basically say, well, I'm not going to let you go after the Dragon Balls unless, I mean, if you claim that you could stop Goman, then I want you to prove to me that you could stop Goman, because Goman might be a weakling, but his magic is very powerful, kind of like Bibbidi is. So you have to be powerful. You claim to have defeated Majin Buu, so I want to see for myself. So he basically tests Goku, and Goku goes Super Saiyan, but just with the aura around him. So he doesn't go full Super Saiyan, and he defeats basically all of the King's guys. And eventually the Kings help him out and basically say, you go now, and with my blessing, and I'm going to give you this ship, and you could go on your way and to take care of Goman. So Glorio, Goku, Shin, and Pansy are now part of the story, moving into episode 5. And this is the part where Gloria gets upset and say, you're doing that intentionally by episode 5. And even more information with regards to Dragon Ball Universe by episode 5 we get to understand. And this is a huge one. Apparently, Shin wasn't conceived from regular means. Shin was conceived from a giant-sized freaking like onion type vegetable thing, um, tree in their world, in the demon world. And every 100 years or so, and 100 years, every 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, is fickle. How every now and again it creates a person, a human being, or in this case, a demon. Um, kind of like something straight out of Naruto with the tree of life or something, but the reverse version of it. Rather than converting and turning people into Zetsus and stuff, it actually develops and creates one single individual every couple of 100 years or 200, 300. And Shin happens to be one of them. And within each different tree, um, those who come from that tree specifically, an individual tree, they're siblings. If you don't come from that specific tree, you're not siblings. So in this situation, if you were to be born from this tree, and then 2, 4, 5, 600 years, 1,000 years, another person was to born from the same tree, you will be siblings. But if you were to be born from this tree, you'll be siblings only of people of this tree. So that's how siblings work within this world. How brothers and sisters and mothers, so on and forth, work within this world. That's how siblings are born in this world. So Shin is very much asexual type characters. He's neither man or he's woman. So that's how Dragon Ball Z does the existence of Shin and his race. Lots of exposition. So by the time episode 5 comes around and is about to come to an end, we get to introduced to like a Minotaur type character who's not very important to the series. But what is important is that Gloria decides to um, test out Goku's strength. I already knew Gloria was kind of strong, but I think Gloria didn't realize how strong Goku really was. So Gloria did his, like, I'm not sure if this is Gloria's ultimate attack or if he's just bluffing, but I believe Goku knows that Glorio isn't strong. Goku can sense the strength level of someone who's hiding hidden powers within their body. And I believe Goku already knows the strength level of Glorio. So he basically stopped Glorio's like ultimate blast with one forward chop. And so Gloria is pretty much defeated. He gives up. And moving on from that, Goku goes back to his regular self and say, okay, it's time for me to take on one of the three. There are three people guarding three Dragon Balls. In the demon world, you only need three Dragon Balls in order to summon an ancient dragon. In the human world, it's a different story. But in the demon world, you only need three. So Goku decides to take on the guardian of the third Dragon Ball, and after defeating the guardian of the third Dragon Ball in both physical combat and in hands combat, basically decision-making combat of wits, Goku basically said, you threw the Dragon Ball away, it's not in any of them. He gives the Dragon Balls to the third Dragon Ball to Goku, and during this process, we get to learn even more information with regards to who Gloria actually is. So it seems to me that Glorio, or it's not a seem, it is a thing. Gloria is working for Dr. Arisu, who's actually working with Goman and Degasu. But apparently, Dr. Arisu has no intentions of working with Goman and Degasu. She wants to be the ruler of the demon world completely, and she's using Glorio in order to do this. For some reason, something tells me that Glorio has other intentions other than to serve her. He seems like way too smart of a guy to be working for someone like Dr. Arisu. I think she has something on him, or he's more evil that he's leading on, and Dr. Arisu doesn't notice, or he's not evil and he's just being used by her. So that's basically the end of Dragon Ball Super. In the last scene of Dragon Ball Super, we see Dr. Arisu, and this is episode 12. I mean, not episode 12, episode 7, I believe. We get to see in episode 7 after we took out in episode 7, also in episode 7, the third Guardian of the Dragon Ball, third Dragon Ball. By episode 7, I skipped all with episode 7. We get to see Dr. Arisu meeting a strange character. And it turns out more more exposition, and if not exposition, more character development of Dr. Arasu. Actually, it's both. We get to see how Majin Buu came into being. Apparently, Bibidi was in cahoots with this other witch. He didn't fully made Majin Buu by himself. This witch gave him the formula to create Majin Buu, and that she's the original creator of the formula for creating Majin Buu. Even though Bibidi might have manipulated the formula in his own way to create Majin Buu to look the way he looked, the actually original formula creator is this woman who's also Majin. And Dr. Arisu says, "You're not fooling me. I know you are the person who was actually in charge of creating Majin Buu, and it wasn't really Bibidi." Now, I don't know if this would work. I believe this is a very lazy thing to do, but who knows? It might actually turn out to be good. But so far, four out of the seven animes, four of them were very good, and two of them was bad, and one of them was average. So in all truth, like most of the animes leading from episode 1 all the way to episode 7 were pretty damn good. So moving on from that, I thought I was going to take a little bit shorter than that with the Dragon Ball one, but there's so much information with regards to Dragon Ball that was present. So I'm going straight into the third one, and I'm hoping this third one, I can end this third one real quick, and this doesn't go over an hour and 30. So this anime is called Tasokare Hotel. And to get straight into this one, Tasokare Hotel is about a girl that died from a stabbing. I don't know if she stabbed herself or she fell on a knife, but she lied on the ground and she was stabbed. She died. She waked up in this desert, and she eventually came to be wearing some strange clothes, which she didn't die in. Um, Apparently, in afterlife, when you die, you have magically get new clothes. She goes to this hotel, which is called the Tasokare Hotel. Very shiny, very nice. Everything is neat. This is a hotel where souls go to after they're dead. It's a transitional point between the afterlife and reality. So you go to this hotel if you don't know if you're alive or dead. Basically, this is a hotel that will remind you of who you are once you lost your memories, and whether you will have to find out whether you're alive or not. So this is like a gateway point between the living and the dead. Whether you go back to becoming alive or you go back to heaven or something like that. You pass on to the afterlife. So it all depends on your physical condition in reality right now. If you're still alive and you remember who you are, you might be able to wake up. But if your body is completely dead, you probably won't be able to wake back up. You will have to go into the afterlife. So the character in this anime is called, I believe her name is Nani. Am I saying that right? Or Nami? Or maybe I'm thinking about a different anime. Yeah, I'm thinking about a different anime. This character, let me see. Did I put the name down for this one? I think I did put the name down for this one. Yeah, this one I did write down because I'm trying to remember all of their names of these different animes. So this one, her name is Neko um, Tuskahara. So I'll just call her Neko. For right now, Neko is the girl that died. She ended up in this hotel. She meet the hotel manager, whose name is Hotel Manager, and he tells her, "You're dead, and you don't remember anything. And this hotel is designed for you to remember. I'll escort you to your room." And he basically summons this guy, whose name is, I believe, is Tori. I don't think his name. No, I don't believe his name is Tori, or maybe it is. I don't remember. Is it a Tori? I believe it is a Tori. Yeah, his name is Otoro, and Otoro basically died in the same way as she did. Maybe not by a knife, but by some strange way that the anime has not yet told me. After I got past episode 4 or 5 or something like that. So moving on from that, we get to the next scene after Atori sends her to her room. She starts to remember a little bit about who she is, and then she introduced herself as Neko. So her face was basically, at the very beginning, her face was invisible. As you see, she has no eyes and everything. And eventually, as you proceed forward into her, all guests who comes to this hotel proceed forward. Once they remember certain things, their face is revealed. Sometimes their head is revealed. In other characters throughout the anime, from episode 1 all the way to like episode 5 or 6 or something like that. I believe I stopped at episode 8 or 9 in regards to this one. But for this anime, I believe I'll stop at episode 5. So her name is Neko Tasokare, and she's a person that stopped here. They say, okay, so you don't remember who you are, you remember your name, but you don't know if you're alive or not. So you could stay here for until you decide to leave or remember everything about yourself. So she walked around the hotel. There's a second floor, there's a first floor, there's a roof. I don't believe there's a third floor, but there's a bar on the second floor, and she walks up the stairs to the bar. That's on the second floor. There is a third floor. Now I look at it in this image, there's a third floor. So there's a first floor, second floor, and a third floor, and of course the roof. So on the second floor, she runs into this girl who's in the kitchen on the second floor. And I believe her name is, what's her name? Ruri. Her name is Ruri. And she was killed by, haven't, I don't think the anime has told me how she died. Maybe negligence or her parents' starvation. I don't know. I haven't gotten to that yet. So Ruri basically say, "Who are you?" She's into Ruri. I'm not sure if she's Neko's into girls, but it's coming across as Neko's into girls because she has the hots for Ruri. And Ruri say, "Okay, let me just go back to work. You're a weirdo because I don't think Ruri is into girls, but I think Neko is into girls." So moving on from that, or maybe Neko is just onto people who look cute, but she's not really into girls. I don't know. Anime does hasn't described who Neko is fully with regards to a character yet. So we're here at the bar scene, and from the bar scene, she meets two characters. One, these another thing with regards to this, these two characters, the woman with the horns and the man that looks like a sheep, are permanent residents of this hotel. So they're not guests of this hotel. They're not guests of this hotel. They're permanent residents of this hotel. So I'm starting to think, okay, so these guys have been here for a long time. They work at this hotel, and their sole purpose is to help or to guide souls, either to move on or to give them help, useful information. But they're not people who are working here as staff members. They're permanent residents of this hotel. I still don't know yet if Mr. Hotel Manager with the flame head, the sheep guy, or the woman with the horns, if they're actually good people or if they're bad people. Hell, I don't know if this hotel is a like conduit between heaven and hell and stuff. I don't know, but hell is in this anime from what the anime has stated. When a girl tried to kill another girl, or she was about to kill her, but she didn't kill her, and yet the girl still got sucked into hell and everything. So apparently, heaven and hell does exist in this anime. So in the first episode, we see Neko solving a situation with a woman losing her memories. And apparently, this woman who lost her memories used to do tarot card work, but she was a fake tarot card user. Eventually, she remembers who she is, and her card head turns into a real head. And eventually, she realized that she got killed because the person who did knew how to do predictions was the real deal, and she was the fake, and that person killed her. And moving on from that, the episode ends. She goes on into reality. Apparently, she was still alive. So she's going to wake back up in the real world, having no recollection that she was in this hotel, which is another thing with regards to this anime. And is the main reason why I have this in the number 3 slot. This is an anime. It could have been just an average anime. If a person died here, come to this hotel, you don't remember who you are, so on and so forth. You have to go back to reality if you got to remember. But this is a detective type story as well. But this is not just a detective type story. This is a unique type of story with regards to whatever happens at this hotel, whether it's bloody or whether it's kind. Once you go back to reality, you would have no memory of being here. There's nothing you will remember for anything that happened here. You won't remember anything. And the main reason for this is the guy with the flaming head says, have you ever heard of anyone ever waking up from any type of situation, a coma or whatever it is, or near death situation, or just from sleep or something? Have anyone from just waking up from a sleep or accessing this place in any way, shape, or form ever stated that they ever visited a hotel called the Tasokare Hotel? At no point in history has anyone ever said anything with regards to Tasokare Hotel. And there's a reason why that is, because no one remembers when they wake up. Their minds are wiped. They're men blacked. So that said, moving on from that, we get to the next episode, episode 2. We find out that you actually can get paid to work at the hotel. I don't know how, because the anime hasn't shown that money is necessary in this afterlife. But basically, Otoro basically says you do get paid. So moving on from that, in episode 3, and this is episode 3, yeah. Episode 3, which episode 2 wasn't good, but episode 1 was very good. In episode 3, we get to meet a guy whose name is unknown, but he has a flower for his head. He's very into flowers. So, but this guy is oozes of very strange behavior. I don't know if Neko herself has this type of instinct about her. I believe Neko could have possibly been an investigator in reality. That's the reason why she doesn't remember who she is, all the way from episode 1 to episode 8. Nothing about who Neko is other than her name and that she went to a concert, and after the concert she got stabbed. Nothing about her is known other than she's very good at assessing people and finding clues. So I'm starting to think to myself, well, Neko is not a detective, but she has a very keen sense with regards to solving certain situations. So maybe she's not a detective, or maybe she's an assistant to a detective, or she was hired to solve certain situations. Maybe she is a detective because she meets this guy, and this guy claims to be a detective. So she automatically gets this feeling that something is off about him. And eventually she goes into his room because the room is presented to those who are the guests in the hotel so they could solve their memories and remember who they are. And she gets to see a book of his memories, a book of his memories of who he is. And apparently this guy have a fetish for killing women. Tie up women, beat them, and kill them. So he's a woman killer. He's basically Jack the Ripper. So Neko hold her side like she got stabbed and stuff. And for some strange reason, we're like, wait a minute. Why the moment she discovered this guy is a serial killer, she automatically hold her side like she got stabbed? Is the anime saying that he might have been the one to stab her? But that's too obvious and that's too easy. So could he have been a serial killer who had stabbed her in reality? I don't know. It would be too on the nose if that's the case. I believe she got stabbed by someone else. It'll be too easy. But if it is him that actually stabbed her, the anime has not said it yet. But if it is him that actually stabbed her, they have a lot of work to do, a lot of work to pull that off. And when it comes to detective type stories and mystery type stories, which this anime clearly is, a supernatural mystery is also horror at the same time. They have big shoes to fill regards to just fleshing that out, just that itself out, and make that impact as hard as freaking episode 4 of freaking Zetsu with dude singing freaking Glee style. So yeah, they have to go hard with that if they're going to bring that forward. So moving forward on from that, she gets to say, okay, goodbye to you, Mr. Serial Killer. I now know you're a serial killer. You remember that you're a serial killer. You remember your name. You used to be a medical student, but you turned out to be a serial killer. I don't know how you discovered that I was a serial killer. He says that to Neko. So he grabbed the girl, took her hostage, decided, okay, if you don't back off, I'm going to kill her. Eventually, he gets subdued by Otoro after Neko shines a light in his eyes. Otoro subdue him, got the knife out of his hands. The guy's not strong. He's a serial killer, but he's not that strong. And eventually, they were going to hold him hostage, or should I not hostage, put him in prison. But you know, Mr. Fire Guy here basically says, well, what will be the point of that? Um, Once he remembers who he is, whether he wakes up or he goes to heaven or goes to hell, once he leaves this once he leaves this place, he won't remember who he is or his actions here whatsoever at all. So there's no point to worry about him, you know, detaining him in the afterlife or this place. And then when you gain your memory, you'll be able to arrest him in reality when he wakes up, because you won't remember who you are and he won't remember who he is in this place. Whatever happens in Tasokare Hotel or in this world, once you wake up, once you wake up, you won't remember anything here. So there'll be no point for you trying to arrest him in reality if everything will be wiped here, including you discovering that he's a serial killer that killed women. So I did decide to let him go and say, okay, go on your way, you can leave. But then he comes back after he left, and he basically said, well, I can't leave because I don't know if I'm alive or if I'm dead. So I don't know if I'm alive or if I'm dead, but I do know who I am, and I do know I'm a serial killer, and I'm good at it, and I'm clever. So this whole anime, moving from episode 3 forward, will not just be about the different guests that are coming to this hotel, but it will be about the mystery of who Neko is, and the mystery of who Otoro. I think I didn't actually, I didn't say his name. His name is Otaro. Otaro. Yeah, that's his name. That's the name of the serial killer. I didn't say his name. Um, the mystery of who Otaro is. Did Otaro kill Neko? Or is Otaro the serial killer someone famous from a famous house? Or nothing is explained. All we know about this anime is that these two are butting heads. They don't like each other, and their sole intention is to figure out a way. Figure out a way. I believe Neko is doing this, and I believe Otaro is also doing, or Otoro, or Otori. I believe his name is Otori. I'm saying it improper. Otori's whole thing is to figure out a way to kill Neko in this world, because if he wakes up and he forgets who he was, he won't be able to kill Neko. His whole thing is to have fun and kill people. If he has the ability, I think his whole thing is to remember this place, find a way. He came back here. I believe he's fully aware that he's alive and that he's pretending that he's not alive, or he actually doesn't remember if he's alive or dead. And he wants to stay here. Is he claiming, I have to stay here because I have no choice because I don't know if I'm alive? But his actions here throughout the various different episodes is to intimidate people, is to pull information out of people, out of the sheep-looking guy, out of the horn-looking girl, out of the manager, out of Neko, to get information, all type of information he can about this place, this world, and see how he could. I don't know why he's doing it, because the moment you wake up, you will forget everything. But I think what he's doing, he's trying to figure out a way to not forget this place. And if he could figure out how to not forget it, he could figure out how to access it and probably use it as a conduit for committing murder and not letting anyone find him. I think that's what he's trying to do. And I think, I'm not sure, that is also what Neko is trying to do. She knows that this guy isn't not just staying here because he wants to stay here. She knows that this guy is trying to figure out a way to remember who he is and trying to figure out a way to use this place in order to travel between reality and this world to commit crimes, more crimes. And if he could invade the real world and get away with killing crimes and escape back here from being killed, he'll be able to do so. I don't know if that's what's happening, but I get a feeling that there's something going on in this anime, mainly between these two. So that's the hook for this anime, the grunge match between these two characters. And of course, there are many episodes of different stories. There are many episodes of stories between different characters. Everyone who comes to the hotel get a little bit of a story. But the main conflict of this story is the conflict of the characters remember who they are, and the conflict of Neko versus Otoro. But mainly, here's the thing, but mainly it's because at the end of each anime, this, or should I say at the beginning of each anime, there's always this hand with an eye in the middle of it. And it doesn't say who this hand with the eye in the middle of it is, but it comes across as an ominous thing that's not related to Otoro, that's not related to Neko, that's not related to anyone. For anything, I believe this could be related to the hotel manager and with regards to the sheep-looking guy and the horn-looking woman. This place might be more dangerous than it appears to be, and or maybe it's not, but there is no fleshing out of who that hand guy is with the eye in the center of the hand, but it comes across as a very ominous thing. So there's something very ominous about this hotel that the anime and people who created anime has not fleshed out yet. Yes, there's a thing going back and forth with Neko and Otoro, and there's different stories that are happening with different characters and residents and Atari, of course, and Yuri and Nemu, and of course the hotel manager, and so on and so forth. But there's something more about the hotel than anything. Like when I discovered that there was actually a hell, it didn't seem to phase the hotel manager whatsoever at all, or the permanent residents, because they've obviously been here for so long. But it also seems to be something that's a natural behavior thing of this world. That there's, it could be that this hotel is a transitional point between those who are looking from hell and those who are looking from heaven onto this place. That this is not just simply a transitional place, that there's something more going on here that the anime is not showing. Now, there are more, I would say, for this anime specifically. There's episode 1 was good, episode 2, okay, episode 3, very good, episode 4, which was better than episode 1, episode 4, okay, episode 5 was better than episode 4, but by the time we got to episode 6, I was feeling fatigued. But by the time we got to episode 7, it got even better. So this is an anime unlike Dragon Ball Daima and unlike Zenshu. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. So it fits on a type of incline. It's on an incline, but it's also on a decline. And then it climbs again and then it declines again. So I'm not sure exactly where this anime is going. All I know is that it feels like it's accelerating per each episode, but not every episode. It jumps episode. Unlike Dragon Ball Daima and Zenshu, this one jumps episode. So I'm not sure how this one will last in the long run. But I do know this. It's better than all the other 20 or so anime I saw before. Because all those different animes, you get to episode 1, you get to episode 2, you're feeling good by the time you get to episode 3, and then all of a sudden, someone shits the bed, and then everything falls apart. For episode 1 is not good at all. I couldn't even get past episode 1 of certain one of those animes. Like, I thought Memmerru was good, but I couldn't even get past episode 3 of Memmerru. And the same goes for Honey and, or what was the name of it? Flowers and Ashura. I thought that was going to be good. Episode 1 and 2 was great. And then all of a sudden, by the time episode 5 came around, I don't know, man. It's 1 hour and 39 minutes and 4 seconds. That's the end of this video. Those are the animes to check out. If you don't like Tasokare Hotel, understandable. But I damn sure guarantee you're going to like Dragon Ball Daima. Maybe to a certain point, and then it falls off for you. But then I know Dragon Ball is famous for getting back on the wagon. Also, If that also fails, is also the number one, Zetsu. So out of these three anime, one of them definitely will be for you, no matter who you are, because each of these animes, each of these three animes, are very different from each other. One is a fighting anime, one is more like a detective or discovery type anime slash supernatural horror, and the other one is more of adventure sword and shield with animation and ridiculous powers and stuff. So they're each one of these animes are very different from each other. So that's it for this video. That's it for the February slash January anime of 2025. I still can't believe to this very day that maybe I'm getting picky as I'm getting older. That out of those 25 anime, only 3 actually I was able to get to the 7th or the 8th episode and the 9th episode of. Um, yeah, only these 3 anime I felt like I got past the 7th episode with feeling that I didn't waste my time. I think that's the clear definition of what these 3 animes are. If I could get past the 3rd or 4th anime easy, then that means it's worth a try. But if you feel like you're shrugging and finding yourself hard to get past the 1st or the 2nd episode of each of these animes, then maybe get rid of that one and then go to the next one. If it takes a long time for you to get used to Tasokare Hotel past episode 1 and 2, then that's not for you. Go on to Dragon Ball Daima. But if you don't like Dragon Ball Daima because it's all about fighting and you want more story, then that's definitely not for you. You want something more associated with Zenshu. But then if you're saying like, okay, I want something that has more action in it, then it's Dragon Ball. So whichever it is that you're looking for, if you definitely want mystery, it's here. If you want sci-fi, it's somewhat here in Zetsu. Um, if you want action and adventure, it's in Dragon Ball. So everything is present here. Actually, action and adventure is present in all 3 of them. But the different genres types here are supernatural slash mystery, action slash adventure, and superpowers or superhero as Dragon Ball Daima, and of course the Zetsu one is more sword and shield type magic world. So yeah, 3 different genres, 3 different things happening. Enjoy it and enjoy your time checking them out. Maybe you'll get used to all 3 of them, or maybe just one of them will be the one that lasts for all the way from the beginning of January 2025 all the way to December of 2025, and we'll have a second season or a second series or even a third. I believe Zetsu is definitely going to have a second series. But since Dragon Ball Daima or Dragon Ball is a universe, I already know that's going to continue on. So to me, I believe Zetsu might actually be the winning factor here. Definitely. Because they basically episode 4 basically stop an apocalypse from happening. Stop the world from coming to an end with music. But not just like High School Musical, because that's kind of corny. The right way to use music. To not make it long. To make it brief, short, straight to the point, and then back to the episode. That's what they did. They did it straight to the point. They made it express what it was supposed to express. They did the niche thing, and then they went right back to the episode. They didn't overstay their welcome. So that's it. That's all I got to say for the end of this anime. These were the 3 that were present here. The one I'm very interested in more than anything is my personal favorite is the Tasokare Hotel. I need to know what the hell is going on in this hotel. But I know for a fact that Zetsu is probably the best choice for you if you're looking for something new. And if you don't feel Zetsu is that one, then it's definitely Dragon Ball Daima. But I have a feeling as a sleeper hit type thing, it might be something that's unexpected because Zetsu seems to be something that shifts in momentum to be something else every now and again. Yes, the girl does her old drawing stuff, and then she creates a different character in order to summon and to defeat the enemy. But how those characters are developed and how they're distributed and how they come to life and what they do more than anything is different per each one she creates. So it's very different. I've never seen it before in anime. I've seen the whole animator in an anime before, but it's how she uses her power and what that power does. It's different, and of course the niche of the character herself is a bit different from what I've seen in the past. Or maybe I haven't been watching enough anime, but I believe I've watched my fair share of anime to say that the use of the powers is very different and very distinct. Yeah, so that's it for this one. I'm calling it a day. I really like the character of Natsuko more than everything else. I really like how they did her. I really like her character behavior and how she behaves as a character. More than anything, I really like that she's this a very immature person, but at the same time she's a very mature person because she's in charge of running the animation of her company. So it's not like she's irresponsible. She knows what is needed to get the job done. But how she behaves, it's seemed like she's very timid and immature. But in certain moments, she just changes from like she switches face out of nowhere. It's like she has two faces, two different characters. And I know it's not there, it's not present, but it's how they did the character that's done quite well. So I liked it a lot. Not so much some of the episodes, they're kind of silly, but I didn't see a freaking cult coming out of nowhere. I didn't see a singing guy, and I didn't see a character whose face looked like it was one way and then changed to a different way to represent who they are. So it's very interesting anime where it's going, and also its politics with regards to, or it's not really its politics, but its reflection on real world issues that's present in the anime and how it addressed these things in the anime is very present. So it's not like it's an anime just to be an anime. It's actually addressing some real world subjects that you didn't see, that they're not really emphasizing it and pointing it and putting a pointer on it and saying like this is what this is and this is how you do it. So they're not making a big deal about it, but they are highlighting it and staying the point of it in various different characters in various different ways. That if you're not paying attention, you wouldn't see it, but it's still there. So that's it. That's all I got to say. Don't want this to be 2 hours. I had fun. I have fun. I'm definitely going to check out what else is going on in Tasokare Hotel. But I really need to know is that's who's going to survive in the long run. I have a very strong feeling that it is. I have a very strong feeling that it'll do what it's supposed to do. But unlike Tasokare Hotel, I have a very strong feeling that it could fall off if it's placed in the wrong hands. So yeah, that's it for this